Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Patriarkh, Prophet, Ilja, out January 3rd on Napalm Records. The album has 8 tracks, 40 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. The first one was released under the name Batushka. They're also a Polish black metal band. Now, when you look at the design of this record, to better understand it, you have to go a few steps back and realize that this album is a concept album surrounding Prophet Ilja, who lived in the same region as the band is coming from. So there's that deeper connection between the concept, the story, and who's telling it. And I think that plays a very important role in bringing a sense of truth, a sense of authenticity to the way this album is presented. Then you look at the record itself and you have 8 chapters. 8 chapters that are not necessarily segregated from one another. This album has this seamless sonic motion that connects all of these 8 chapters together, almost giving you more of an audiobook experience. And that, in my opinion, enhances not just the concept, but it enhances the overall experience that the listener is going to get when it sits down and presses play on this album. Once you move into the sound, the album has a very atmospheric sound. It also has a lot of room. It's a big sounding album. I would say at times it becomes almost cinematic in nature. I was expecting the record to be a lot more narrow, to be a lot darker. It still has a lot of darkness in it. It's still a black metal album at its core, but the influences of folk instruments and the influences that come from the overall atmosphere that it's created through sound and also through the choirs and the female vocals on the record really allow this album at times to open up a little bit more and bring in that more cinematic vibe that allows the record to have this incredible size and not necessarily having to fill all of that size with heaviness. It creates more of a dynamic experience on a track-by-track basis. It makes the album more palpable. It makes the record a little bit more easier to digest because it's very easy to tell the forest from the trees with every single song. I actually felt listening to this record that the folk elements, for example, play a more important role in defining the overall experience, the overall sound, the overall atmosphere of this album than, for example, the guitars. Not to say that the guitars don't have a role, but this is not necessarily a guitar-driven or a guitar-focused album. They play their part in the sonic tapestry that this album has created. But if I have to pick an important element on this album, the folk elements on this record define a little bit more of what the concept is all about and help place the concept in a very specific period of time. And I think that's important for any story that you're trying to tell someone. If you can create an aura, if you can create an atmosphere of authenticity, an atmosphere that allows the story to come to life to the listener of that same story, I think you can go further with it. It becomes more captivating. So pushing the guitars on this record almost to a secondary role, allowing the folk elements to have a much bigger impact, and then using the drums to create movement, to create size, to help with that cinematic approach, really made this album a very interesting experience through and through. Still bringing in the black metal elements, the more driven sound, the more darkened perspective, the more harsh perspective into the mix, creates that dynamic experience that gives great life, great shell life to this album for years to come. Once you get into the vocals, you have 2 sides of the vocals on this record. You have the use of choirs and you have female vocals, and I felt like the choirs and female vocals really helped with not only the cinematic approach that some of the tracks have, but it also helped with giving the record some size, creating a much wider palette and creating a much wider canvas for them to be able to create songs that don't feel restrained, that have a little bit more life in them. When you're telling stories of someone, when you're basing your record on someone who existed, on a real concept of existence, creating a sound that allows for that life that's in the words to come to life in the sound is really important. And I felt that the vocals with the choirs and clean vocals really helped the sound flourish. It really helped those songs gain that dimension that I felt was something a little bit different that I wasn't expecting, but impacted the record in a very positive way. The harsh vocals, on the other hand, bring everything in. They're almost like a black hole. They suck everything in. They suck the energy in. They suck the light in. They collapse upon themselves. And they're definitely the main element of this album when it comes to the more black metal experience of the record that stays very consistent from that standpoint. And I felt like that was an important element that allow you to always feel like there was an elasticity to the way these songs are put together. It doesn't matter how far away you get with a track. It doesn't matter how much cinematic the track becomes. Once those harsh vocals come in, those cavernous vocals come in, you're brought back into the essence of the band. You're brought back into that root cause of their sound. And I thought that was a very important aspect of building an album like this that sometimes goes really far off the beaten path, but having that ability to bring it back into the beaten path allows the record to not lose itself within itself. It's a great album. It's an album that you press play and it transports you in time because of the way it's constructed, the way it sounds, the way the vocals are used. And like I said, those folk elements really help set this album and set this concept in a very vivid way in the memories of the listeners. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I picked 3 chapters. I picked chapter 2, chapter 5, and chapter 6. Now, chapter 2, or song number 2, if you will, the choirs really give size to the song, but they also create this very unique atmosphere within the track itself. The guitars have a little bit more of a somber, darker melody that plays really well off of everything else that's happening around them. I like the harsh vocals and the darkness and heaviness that they consistently give to the track. A track that finds a way of navigating between the darker sound and the darker experience that the song has, but also the lighter experience that the track offers. A song that comes really early into the record is the second track right after the intro, and it has all the dynamics of what this album is all about. Navigating between darkness and light, creating those two polar opposite experiences within the same record, sometimes within the same song, defining what's going to be the elements that are going to carve those two experiences, the choirs, the clean vocals, the harsh vocals, and then obviously giving size to the track. This track has a lot of size for how it's presented. It pushes that edge towards that cinematic experience that you can get with that much larger soundscape. Then with chapter 5, you see a track that has this really large outer edge, almost epic. I wouldn't go as far as to say cinematic, but the outer edge of this song feels and it sounds epic. But then it carries this very compact, heavy, thick nucleus in the middle. And then there's a huge gap between where that nucleus stands, the sound that it offers, the vocals that it puts forward, and the outer edge. This dynamic is really interesting to me because they were able to create a song that has two different worlds within one single sphere. It has the nucleus, then it has this open space, and then it has the shell around that nucleus. It's a really interesting song from what it offers sound-wise, that experience that it gives of this dynamic, and becomes very unique because of it. There's no other track on this record that creates this sort of duality of experiences where you feel on one hand like the track is larger than life, but on the other hand, when the sound really comes in and it really feels heavy and penetrating, it's so narrow, it's so compact. Last but not least, chapter 6. Now, this song has a lot of folk elements, and those folk elements become key for the way this song is presented. Because this song, while, for example, chapter 5 was more about the sound, less about the vocals, this one is the other way around. The folk elements are there to create a very thin veil of atmosphere, of experience, but it's really about the vocals. It's about the choirs, the female vocals, the harsher vocals. It really becomes a vocally driven song. It's a song that resonates from a vocal standpoint. It's all about the vocals. It feels very stripped down, and it just uses those folk elements to create an ambiance, to create an image that allows the vocals to then come forward and bring life to the words. It's such an interesting concept for a track, coming specifically after a song that had a very interesting dynamic as well. So these two tracks really showcase the uniqueness of this album. This album has a lot of uniquenesses from song to song, but at the same time, when you listen to it from beginning to end, all the tracks, all the chapters fit perfectly with one another in order to paint this incredibly vivid and dynamic image of what this album's concept is all about. This is it, guys. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on Patriarkh, Prophet Elijah. Once again, out January 3rd on Napalm Records. I'm dying to hear what you got to say. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.